Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is Sophie.
I'm Gaynor.
And today it's just the girls again, just us two.
Aidan's not feeling too well, he's got a bit of a sore throat, so we didn't want him coughing and spluttering all over our videos.
So today we are going to do the 10 most dangerous cities in America. So this was a couple of years ago.
Yeah, 2020.
But I'd assume there wouldn't be much difference in the space of a couple of years.
No, and I mean really, where is there that's dangerous really?
That
I mean, I know you get pockets of areas in
well, that's
all
the
over the world.
That's the thing, every city would have them, wouldn't they?
But I don't think you can really put a whole place on, you know.
And say the whole the whole thing's dangerous. Is there anywhere you'd like that comes to mind that you think?
Well, before I lived there, I always used to think like Harlem in New York was dangerous.
Yeah.
But when I've been there, it's actually fine.
Yeah.
I think it's, you know, it's got a bad rap. And also they say about Detroit in Michigan.
I was going to say Detroit out of everywhere. I think I watched, is it that like animal like rescue thing, and they do one in Detroit,
right.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
And it
well,
always...
8 Mile was, you know, the movie with Eminem, that was filmed there as well.
Was it?
Yeah.
Is that where is he from? He's not...
No,
we had this conversation,
I always thought he was from Detroit, but he's actually not. He was born somewhere else, and I think in his later life he's lived there.
Lived there.
Yeah.
Right.
But, yeah, let's see.
Let's have a look anyway.
What are you trying to hide? Don't you realize you're involved in the murder? You've got yourself in a jam it's not going to be easy to get out of, unless you're on the level with me. This is no time for secrets.
Murder. Such a scary word. Depending on where you live, it can be a really scary word, or just another regular day in my hood word. Hopefully, if you live in a really scary, murdery place, you probably have your doors locked right now as you watch this informative video. No, you'll be okay. Probably. Maybe. Things might seem like they're going to hell in a handbasket these days, as the saying goes, but you might be surprised to hear it's not as bad as it used to be. Going back to 1950, when they started counting murders, I guess, today's homicide rate is far below its peak. We're closer to how things were in the mid-60s these days.
Wow.
Back in 1970, 1980, and 1991, things were really bad. Like there were twice as many murders than today.
I was going to say, when we were moving there, my mum and Darren's mum was absolutely petrified. She was like, there's a murder every single day there, it's so dangerous, you know.
Yeah.
And they really didn't want us to go there. But if you look at knife crime in Manchester now, it's at the highest it's ever been.
Oh, no. It's scary, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like I'm not surprised it's gone up, because again, like nowadays you look on the news and all you see is like stabbings and knife crimes.
Yeah.
Like it's scary,
every single
isn't it?
morning when I wake up, at least 2 or 3 knife crimes per day in Manchester.
And a lot of them like do end in like death as well, don't they?
Yeah, and it's all young males.
Yeah, it is.
And it's all, you know, turf war and...
Yeah. I don't know why it's got so bad.
No.
It's just like a trend.
I think it's because there's not enough reprimands. They know that if they go to prison, they'll be out again.
They'll be out, yeah.
They do like half the time, so there's no deterrent.
No, there isn't. Whereas in America, I think
they go down
more
for
of
a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, they go down for a lot.
Yeah.
But the thing is, in America, it's a lot more crime with guns. So if you stab somebody, there's a possibility that, you know, they're going to live. Whereas if you get shot, it's most likely.
It's a lot less,
It's not like, you know.
And you can probably hurt more people with a gun on average than obviously a knife, you know what I mean, but still.
Yeah.
I wonder why it was so, like, it went really up though in like this, like...
In the 80s, it just went, I remember in New York, it was crazy. I mean, I don't know about other areas. I know in Los Angeles there's an area there, I think it's called Compton, that might be...
Oh yeah, I've heard of it, yeah.
That might be like the same, but in the 80s, I don't know what happened.
No, just... Yeah.
And, dear American, you think things are bad in your hood? Check out the murder rates in other countries. Now, we'll go into this a little bit later, but for perspective, El Salvador has 11 times more murders per capita than the USA. In fact, it's kind of a Central American Caribbean sweep for highest murder rates, outside of a couple of African nations. We're way down here, somewhat near as many murders per capita as Greenland and Samoa. The least murdery country? There's a handful of small countries where nobody got murdered last year, and then Japan, where hardly anybody gets murdered ever. I guess they don't have guns there? Today in America, you have about a 1 in 20,000 chance of being murdered. But that number is much higher if you live in the cities we're going to talk about. So, lock your doors as we go through America's Murder Capitals 2020.
Very upbeat music.
Alright, let's get started here. First up on our Murder Capital tour of the U.S. is Newark, New Jersey. Here in Newark, there were a total of 75 murders, which may or may not sound like a lot, but for a city of 282,000 people, that's a lot. For perspective, the entire state of West Virginia only had 67.
I suppose.
You have a 1 in 3,000 chance.
We used to work in Newark, New Jersey.
Did you?
Yeah, and when...
No way.
Yeah, and when we used to go to the bank,
Mm.
they had guards on the doors
Mm.
and all like glass. Whereas in the UK,
Ah.
when you go to the bank,
Yeah.
it's just you and the teller. you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
There they have like the glass. And also when we went
No
to
way.
lunch, when we went to pick up Wendy's,
Mm.
people would say to us, no, don't go there. Like, you know.
What,
it's
don't
really-
go to Wendy's?
Yeah, because the area was really
Oh,
dangerous.
yeah. But
Because we hadn't grown up there, we didn't know anything about it. We just
No.
went about our daily lives, and we were just
Yeah.
like everyone was friendly.
Yeah,
you know,
like,
so why
it's
would
all
it be
fine.
bothered? Yeah.
stop it.
Yeah.
But I think there should be like, over here, there should be like guards or like security, like working in a bank,
Yeah.
surely.
I don't know. I think it just heightens everything if there's, you know.
Puts people on edge a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, if there's a security guard there, you think something is going to happen, that's why they're...
Yeah. I don't know. I went to the co-op the other day, and they have security on the co-op at the co-op.
Do they?
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Just because they're
where
like
we live.
antisocial.
I actually don't know what it is. I know it did get robbed a few years ago.
That might be, yeah.
But they do have security at the
Right.
co-op.
Well, my brother, he worked at a bank, and he, like, they held him at, like, gunpoint.
Really?
And so, like, well, I think, yeah, I'm sure, like, they had, oh, maybe it wasn't guns, but they had something, they held him with, like, a weapon and, like, forced the manager to open the safe and stuff, and I was like, oh my goodness, and
Yeah.
then, obviously, it left not long after,
Where
but...
was that?
It was in Eccles, to be
Right.
fair, so,
Mm.
yeah, not the best area ever, but...
I don't know. I've never known of Eccles as being like a rough area.
I think it has its streets and stuff, but like just in general, like the town centre itself, it used to be, my mum always says it used to be lovely like back in the 70s, 80s, whereas
Yeah.
now it's gone
Oh,
quite downhill, unfortunately, but
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
That's being killed in Newark every year. And get this, that's actually way down from the peak in 1960. That means Newark is safer now more than ever, and it's still really bad here. Apparently they've been cracking down here in Newark, with aid coming from the FBI, State Attorney's Office, and New Jersey State Police. Newark PD has even resorted to providing haircuts for kids for school, giving away turkeys and coats along with school supplies to quell the violence. But the kids aren't the ones shooting people? If you don't want to get killed, stay in the north and east parts of Newark. If you want to be killed, then go to the south and west parts of Newark. Downtown is apparently better, but still nowhere near safe. Outside of Camden, Trenton, Atlantic City, and Patterson, the rest of the state's pretty safe, since, as a whole, New Jersey's the 5th safest state in the U.S. Where are we heading next? Let's follow this paramedic to Kansas City, Missouri, aka KCMO, aka KC Ghetto, at least in some parts. Here in Kansas City, Missouri, there were 137 murders last year. That's more than the whole state of Massachusetts. What's going on here, people? It's getting worse here, at least lately. Last year, the city nearly broke a record for murders, which it had set 2 years prior. And just about every single murder is unsolved, meaning the perps are still on the streets here. The KCPD has been urged to put more homicide detectives on the streets and develop a witness protection program to make it easier for people to come forward with leads. Just as I was writing this, a mass shooting in Kansas City was at the top of the news. I think they said this happened at a Kansas City Chiefs celebration party. Why does sports bring out the worst in people? 2/3 of those killed in Kansas City were black males, contributing to Missouri's #1 ranking for black homicide victimization. Don't worry, Missouri, we'll be back again to visit you again before the end of this video. But for now, we heard some gunshots, so we're going to go en route to the city of Memphis. Here in Memphis, there were 191 murders. What the?
Wow.
That's more than the whole state of Wisconsin in a year. And it's getting worse here too. 2 years ago, Memphis saw 180 people get killed, and then last year it was 187. It's so bad here in Memphis that officials are calling it a crisis. You think? The Justice Department now has a plan to solve problems in places like Memphis. It's called Operation Relentless Pursuit. It's going to involve more money, officers, and technology, and syncing databases to try to figure out a way to catch these killers. If you're watching this from another country, well, yes, the United States has some really terrible, scary places, but nothing like countries like Venezuela, where 8% of all murders happen worldwide. Mexico saw 6% of the world's murders last year. Colombia had 6% of the world's murders. Brazil had 4%, and South Africa had 3%. And here's a troubling stat. 400,000 people were murdered worldwide last year. That's more than died from drowning. Twice as many people, or 800,000, killed themselves last year. If you live in certain Baton Rouge neighborhoods, you might feel like you're in a foreign country. That's because you have a 1 in 2,800 chance of being murdered if you live here. 83 people were homicide victims last year, which was actually down from 2017 when 105 people were killed. That's a lot. This person lives in Baton Rouge, and she had some poignant things to say. Crime, violence, mental health issues, racism. I can count on 2 hands the people worth the investment of a long-term relationship. I hated moving there as a child, and I fully loathe the place now. Louisiana can literally break off and float out into the Gulf, and I wouldn't care, except I hope Baton Rouge was the first to drown. Damn. The areas in Baton Rouge where most of the murders happen are in low...
It's not a very good, do you know what I mean? Review of it, is it?
No.
Like people were moving there and you read that online?
Yeah, but it's like we were thinking of going to Memphis in the summer.
Stop it.
And when I look at that, I think,
Because I was going to say Memphis. I was like, to me, dangerous places. I wouldn't even think of it.
Yeah, there must be areas that you don't know, do you?
But a certain area, areas within Memphis. Yeah, I'm sure the main places where you go, the bars and touristy places, wouldn't be bad.
Low-income areas where high drug use and gangs are prevalent. No surprises there. Hurricane Katrina made the problem worse, apparently.
Did you know Louisiana has the highest incarceration rate in the world?
Wow.
I think, maybe, I heard that once, Mappy. Is that really true? Wow, it looks like Louisiana had way more people locked up a few years ago, but it's gone down? What, are they letting people out? Also, Oklahoma took the lead for a minute. In terms of countries... Oh yeah, we're number 1.
Wow.
The most locked up people of all. So Louisiana does have more people locked up than anywhere else in the world per capita. And look at all the countries that are over capacity for their prisons.
Is that 2?
Have you ever been to jail, Mappy?
No, never.
Is that 2 million?
Yeah.
Nearly 2.2 million
Yeah.
people are in prison.
Yeah.
This was a few years ago. But I'm looking England, 80,000.
It's a lot bigger over there, though.
But that's the thing.
I mean, if you look, 80,000 is a lot for such a small country.
It isn't, yeah. It's interesting.
Yeah.
And I don't plan to.
Yeah, well, I don't think you'd survive very long in there.
Maybe I'd make friends. The other prisoners could use me to find a way to escape.
That's a good point, Mappy. Oh, good old Mappy. Please don't ever wind up in jail. We'll never see you again.
5.5%.
We don't have to go very far to get to our next murder.
In England, it was 5.5% of women were in prison.
Of the whole population of women?
Yeah, that's high. That when I looked down at the other countries, 8.9 in the US, but if you go down, 5.5 in England and Wales, that's pretty high.
Women prisoners,
Yeah.
5 point. Does that mean of the prison population?
So women prisoners.
So of the 80,000, 5.5% of the 80,000 are women.
Yeah, but if you look at the other women's ones, Russia's quite high, and Japan, which surprises me.
Yeah.
South Africa 2.1, but yeah.
Nigeria 1.9. Kenya, does that say 42?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's nearly half of women.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's a good point, Mappy. Oh, good old Mappy. Please don't ever wind up in jail. We'll never see you again. We don't have to go very far to get to our next murder capital of the U.S., New Orleans. Here, 119 people were murdered last year that they know of, which is way better than in previous years. like in 50 years. But why? Well, for one, the mayor says her plan on using data-driven police interventions and community outreach is working. The Big Easy was the murder capital of America in 94, and from 94 to 2013, the city averaged 250 murders annually. Oh, but it's still bad here, and it's still more dangerous than in most places in Mexico and Venezuela. Tourists and residents are told to walk in groups. I've been to many areas in New Orleans, and besides just the rundown post-Katrina neighborhoods, you can almost get stabbed just a block off of Bourbon Street while taking a pee by a dumpster. Happened to me. There's rules on what...
Sorry to pause again, but would you have said it was really dangerous when you went?
I've not been. That's
sorry.
That's where we're supposed to be going, but I have heard that you have to keep your wits about you.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm really surprised, because that's like one of the top on my list of places to go.
Yeah, Mardi Gras and all that.
Yeah. I like the jazz clubs and stuff.
To do so you don't get killed in New Orleans. Stay away from bad neighborhoods. Okay. Travel in groups. Be home by 1 a.m. Don't go to cemeteries. Don't look like you're weak. Carry a gun. Okay. Man, some serious stuff.
Detroit is daring to reach up. Some Detroiters prefer to dwell in these new, self-contained cities within a city. Others in new cooperatives or friendly neighborhoods. Whatever the choice, Detroiters rate their city high for living, working, and sheer enjoyment.
Yeah, Detroit is nothing like that now. Of course Detroit's on this list. This city saw 261 people murdered last year alone, which is more than the whole state of New Jersey, which has a city on this list. And murders are down here, too. It's only the first time since 1967 where there were less than 300 killings in this city. Probably because everyone's leaving. Typically, a city's crime rate goes up when its population goes down, so Detroit's an interesting case. Hopefully, it's a long-term trend. But if you think that's bad, in 1974, there were 714 murders here, and in 91, there were 615. So now's nothing. Of course, population declines left abandoned buildings behind, which have become magnets for the drug trade and angry, mean people. Poverty, crime, shootings, drugs, and urban blight in Detroit are ongoing problems. Poverty-wise, a typical Detroit neighborhood made about $25,000 last year, the second lowest in the country, and about half of what the...
And I think it's a shame because like you see them like really nice old like
big houses,
big houses,
and
like
all just derelict.
They could be like beautiful.
It obviously needs regenerating, doesn't it?
Yeah. It just looks very like industrial though. It needs like a lot of money.
Yeah.
Like I think put into it.
Yeah.
Look at all that.
Yeah, it was a lot of
urban blight in Detroit are ongoing problems. Poverty-wise, a typical Detroit neighborhood made about $25,000 last year, the second lowest in the country, and about half of what the typical American household made. Similarly, its poverty rate of 40% is the second highest in the country, well more than double the national poverty rate of 15%. Birmingham, Alabama is our fourth murder capital of the U.S. That might throw you off since Detroit's only fifth, but if you're measuring actual murders per capita, the numbers don't lie. Here in Birmingham, there were 88 murders, and for a city of just over 200,000 people, that means residents have a 1 in 2,400 chance of being killed every year. You know your city's bad when the Venezuelan government's telling residents to avoid you. How are people being killed in the U.S.? This chart shows that about half of all murders are by a handgun, another 3,000 are by an unidentified gun, 1,500 people were stabbed to death, and then you have bare hands, blunt objects, poisoned? Only 5 people were poisoned last year in the U.S.? That seems low. Now, Birmingham's a very black city, where 2/3 of the population is African American. What percentage of murder victims in the U.S. are black men? Well, according to this chart, black Americans were only slightly more likely to be killed in the U.S., casting aside the myth that most murders in the U.S. are black-on-black crimes. Another interesting stat, most murders don't cross racial lines, meaning white people kill white people and black people kill black people. Of all black homicide victims, 86% were male, and the average age is 31 years old.
Wow.
83% of black victims were shot and killed with guns. Here in Jackson, Mississippi, things certainly have been better, especially on the south side of town. There were 78 murders here, which means folks had a 1 in 2,100 chance of being a victim themselves. That's only twice as high as dying in an accidental drowning. Heck, your odds of falling down the stairs and dying is 1 in 1,600. Jackson's crime has been ticking up lately, but look at the last few years. This news channel in Jackson keeps a running tally of Jackson murders, which is sad. Last year ended with a bunch of shootings right on New Year's Eve in Jackson, where people were just randomly shooting into homes. What is going on, people? Which U.S. cities are actually decreasing their murder rates? Well, New York City had like 2,200 murders in 1990, but their murder rate's down by 90%. Chicago peaked in the early 90s as well. The South Side is notoriously terrible for shooting.
The last time we went to New York City, I noticed that on every single corner there was a police.
Really?
Very, very high police presence, which surprised me because the time I went previously, there was police, you saw police around, but not as much. But this time there was so many more.
Do you think it's a good thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, like they're there to...
It's a deterrent, isn't it?
Help them, yeah.
But yeah, I noticed that there was a lot more police presence this time. That one. Not sure why.
I watched something on about a year or so ago on Netflix called the Times Square Killer, I think it was called, and it was it was saying about how in the 70s, 80s, Times Square isn't anything like it is today. Now it's all very glitzy and glam and the American dream kind of thing. But back then I didn't realise they were it was well known for crime, drugs, violence, loads. They had loads of brothels and stuff like that, and I was no way, Times Square.
Yeah.
But they completely overhauled it.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
San Francisco too, though covered in poop, has seen its homicide rate go down by quite a bit. Who's our homicide runner-up? St. Louis is. Here, more than 194 murders happened last year.
Wow.
For a city of over 300,000 people, that's a lot. You have about a 1 in 1,600 chance of dying in St. Louis every year, and likely by a gun. Way back in the early 90s, there were 100 more murders a year here, and over time, murders here have gone up and down, but currently the number of murders each year are as high now as this city's seen since the late 90s. Downtown's pretty nice, at least in the winter months, a fact I can attest since I was just there a month ago. However, the north side of St. Louis is very, very bad, and where most of the problems happen, likely between people fighting over drugs or gang BS or both. St. Louis has a new plan called Cure Violence, which resembles Chicago's plan called Cease Fire. The goal is to treat gun violence like it's a disease and to stop its spread by helping youth see alternatives to violence and by convincing gunshot victims from retaliating. Okay, who's our murder capital of the USA? Baltimore is, or as people have called it, Bodymore Murderland. Here in Baltimore, there were 350 murders last year, which is the highest it's been since 1993, and close to an all-time high. It's also 5 years in a row now that there have been more than 300 murders in Baltimore. You have about a 1 in 1,700 chance of being murdered in Baltimore every year, and much higher in certain parts of the city. This site's been tracking homicides in Baltimore, and the last 100 only goes back to Halloween, and it's January right now. Look at the last mayors of Baltimore. Resigned, didn't run for re-election, resigned, didn't run for re-election. Would you want that job? In Baltimore, the stated targets for busts aren't drug offenses. It's trying to find all the damn handguns. There's similar plans on what to do to curb the violence and murder rates here, but it's all the same thing, and it probably won't work. They've even considered flying surveillance planes over Baltimore 24/7. People say the police aren't as aggressive since the Freddie Gray murders and riots in 2015. Others say it's all the illegal guns laying around. Some say it's a drug crisis. Well, there were 417 mass shootings last year in the U.S., more than one every day. It's white versus white, black versus black. Lots of people here are sick, and big pockets of inner cities in the U.S. have had a breakdown of morality and family values. When the culture of the streets takes precedence over getting a damn job and being responsible, there's nothing we can do to stop it, except throw them all in jail. Can we do that?
Wow.
Hey guys, if you learned something new or you...
Los Angeles wasn't on there at all, wasn't it?
Was it not? I feel like... Oh, it said LA, but was that Louisiana?
Yeah.
That was it. Yeah.
Los Angeles wasn't on there at all, and I thought that might be one of the
one
top
of the main ones. Yeah.
So well done.
Yeah. I know. Yeah.
But I've been to Baltimore and I didn't find it that... when we said we were going, people were like, oh, Baltimore.
Really?
Yeah. And after we'd been, we had like a great time there. No issues.
What did you get? What was there to do? Like,
we just went on holiday. We went like on the beachfront and stayed in like a hotel, and it was lovely.
Right.
Before the kids were born, it was just Darren and I.
Yeah.
But
So you can kind of do what you want.
Because, in fact, before we went, we didn't know anything about it. We just thought, where should we go? Like, oh, Baltimore, let's go to Baltimore.
Yeah, because everyone's heard of Baltimore. Like,
booked into a hotel, stayed near the beach, had a great time. When we came back, people were like, you went to Baltimore? We were like, we loved it. We had a great time.
Yeah.
And we went wandering around at night. I must admit, at night time, Darren said to me, it was getting a bit like, what's it here?
A little bit sketchy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we
but
went
then
back.
I guess sometimes you maybe just like
Feel
like that when you go. I think when you go anywhere like that's unfamiliar and it's night time, it's a bit like you're on edge.
Yeah.
Because you don't know where you are. Or...
What we found was there was quite a lot of gangs that were kind of gathering on corners, and we were like, maybe we were not in such a good area because we just went out, walking. But quite interesting. There's which areas to go to and which not to go to, because Memphis and
I think they get a bad rep, obviously, like from this video as well. Like, but like you say, you've been Baltimore, you want to go to New Orleans. Like, I think it shouldn't necessarily stop you from going there.
No,
it's not saying that like tourists. It's more like obviously like probably people that live there.
Yeah,
in certain
it looks like it's maybe people shooting each other that know each other.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
more gang warfare.
Exactly. But yeah, wouldn't put me off going anywhere.
No, me neither.
Right, thank you everybody for watching. If you haven't liked and subscribed, please do. And
hit
we will
that
catch
bell.
you. Yeah, hit the bell. And we'll catch you on the next one.
Bye.
Bye.